Okay, so we'll welcome everybody. Lovely to see you here today. I'm Emma Molina. I'm the Vice Chair of Rooted Santa Barbara. And this is, I think, our third or fourth class that we're doing now in collaboration with the Breast Cancer Resource Center, where we are bringing plant-based nutrition education to the breast cancer community. And we are incredibly excited about this collaboration and to be working alongside our buddies at BCRC here in Santa Barbara. So I am just going to change to speaker view just for our recording. And we're being joined today by one of our board members, Jenifer Swartzentruber, who is a registered dietitian, a diabetes educator, and as I said, one of our board members. And today we're super excited because she is going to be diving into one of my favorite topics of food, is creamy without the dairy. So Jenifer, I'm going to just let you take it away from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Emma. Hello, everyone. Hi. So nice to be here with you today. And so I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between my slides and me here in my kitchen. And so I'm going to start with the slides now. So I'm just going to share my screen. Thanks for that lovely introduction, Emma. I might be pulling from your wisdom on this lecture, so please chime in. All right, so when I was thinking about this topic, I actually added goodness in there, creamy goodness without the dairy, because everybody loves that wonderful mouthfeel and creaminess. It evokes, so much pleasure when we eat, and we really wanted to make this a fun and interesting and hopefully offer some new information. So I'm really happy to be here with Rooted Santa Barbara and the Breast Cancer Resource Center. It's such a wonderful collaboration. So let's get started with some housekeeping. First, I'll go through our disclaimer. While nutrition is paramount to long-term health, this class is not intended to provide medical advice, guidance, or treatment. If you have questions regarding specific conditions, treatment, or lifestyle changes, those should be discussed directly with your healthcare provider. Working in concert with your healthcare providers is the sure way to positive outcomes and healing. So I also just wanted to take a moment to just pause and say that when we talk about dietary change, we just start where we are. I really love this quote from Arthur Ashe: start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And so let's just, I like to keep it real, and all of us are on different places on the spectrum of eating. And I just hope that you walk away with some new insights and hopefully also some new tools in your toolbox for eating in a more healthful way. And quite possibly you actually might dive in and try one of these recipes afterwards. So, okay, so today's agenda, I'm going to cover dairy. Is it friend or foe? Or does it have to be that polarized? Calcium, can we get enough without milk? And the recipes we're going to be reviewing will be a white bean dip, a whipped almond ricotta, and a nacho cheese sauce. And then we'll talk a little bit about some non-dairy alternatives. So why are we all here? Why are we even talking about why replace dairy with plant-based foods? Well, there's actually a lot. I'm going to keep it brief. As a dietitian, I could turn this lecture into, a deep dive into nutrition and dairy and health, but we'll just skim the surface here today. So saturated fat and cholesterol are definitely high in the dairy food group. It's also high in sugar, and not just high in fat, but saturated fat, as I said. And we'll find out the relevance of that in the next screen. But also, so many people, generally speaking, are lactose intolerant. For example, 95% of Asian Americans have lactose intolerance. 74% of Native Americans, 70% of African Americans, 53% of Mexican Americans, and 15% of Caucasians. So lactose is the sugar in milk, and mother's milk, human mother's milk has lactose as well. But typically when we wean, anywhere in the first few years of life, our ability to digest lactose typically would decrease. And that's a normal human evolution process. So it's not surprising that many populations continue to be lactose intolerant. Now, those of us that have lived with dairy in our history of eating for a long time are perhaps a little more tolerant to these sugars. Certainly not necessary. So how many of us remember Milk, It Does the Body Good, or the 3-2-4-4 Day campaign? These are industry slogans. They're actually not supported by health data. And it's shocking to me because those are things that I remember from my childhood. These were ingrained in us. And all of us have been told to drink our glass of milk at dinner time. So we're really asking for a big shift here. So let's keep open minds. And why consider ditching dairy in the first place? Well, as we mentioned, it's high in saturated fat, which contributes to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's disease. Research shows that dairy products have little or no benefit to bone health. I was like, what? How could that be? That's all we've been told is the why we eat dairy products is for the calcium. Well, in the end, the data doesn't measure up. And studies have linked dairy to an increased risk and recurrence of some types of cancers. And with that said, I added a line here of Dr. Christy Funk from the Pink Lotus Breast Cancer Center, or Breast Center. And she has endless amounts of information, research studies, and videos. So please check her out. She's really the top knowledgeable physician in reasons not to indulge in dairy, let's say. And also there's the possible link to type 1 diabetes, asthma symptoms, and cyclic acne, just to mention a few. And this I go into a little bit of data because this bone strength, this bone health was so ingrained in me, and it was so shocking to hear that there are large studies to support the fact that the very reason we consume dairy products for bone health just doesn't measure up. So one study from Harvard, 72,000 women for 2 decades drinking milk found no evidence that it helped prevent bone fractures or osteoporosis. In another study of 96,000 people, men who consumed more milk as teenagers, the more bone fractures they experienced as adults, and similarly other studies with adolescent girls. So now that we've opened that topic, if calcium is the reason that we consume dairy products, then how can I get calcium if I don't consume dairy products, right? So here's just a little bit of information about how much we need and why we need it, right? We want to build healthy bones and teeth. We need it for blood clotting, cell membrane function, nerve function, muscle contraction, and to regulate enzymes. So it's about 1,000 milligrams. If you're over 55, it bumps up to 1,200 milligrams a day. And if we just take a look, we have plenty of other options to get calcium. If calcium really is of concern, there are plenty of other places to get it, such as non-dairy calcium fortified beverages, which we'll go over later, even almonds, non-dairy yogurts, tofu, cooked green leafy vegetables, calcium fortified orange juice, beans, backstrap molasses. Can you believe it? 1 tablespoon, 80 to 200 milligrams. That's incredible. Same with tahini, which we're going to be using today in one of the recipes. So again, my dietitian background, I just want to throw this out here. If we need about, just from our typical diet, we're getting a few hundred milligrams of calcium without even paying attention. So if we wanted to supplement more with 700 to 900 milligrams of calcium-rich foods a day, this is what it might look like. On the left, we have 200 to 300 milligrams of calcium per serving foods, black beans, bok choy, tofu, the orange juice, the fortified milks, and the fortified yogurts. And on the right-hand side, the 100 to 200 elemental calcium per serving is cream of wheat, soybeans, broccoli, kale, almonds, dried figs, almond butter, sesame seeds, and tahini. So when we bulk up our daily intake of lots of plant-based foods, we have no problem with reaching our calcium needs. Quick note about oxalates. Like I tell you, I could do a deep dive into this topic, but just in general, there are certain things that are called anti-nutrients. They actually block the absorption of calcium. So the low oxalate foods are good they're considered good sources of calcium, right? So like broccoli, bok choy, kale, Napa cabbage, watercress, mustard greens, turnip greens. Medium oxalate foods, just like collard greens and dandelion greens. But the bottom list, the high oxalate foods, would be beet greens, spinach, and Swiss chard. These are actually not considered good sources of calcium. All right, so let's get cooking. Now, I'm gonna say this picture on this screen is actually my husband making his tofu scramble just this morning. And look at the creaminess. I love this picture because it shows the creaminess of this nacho cheese sauce, the recipe that Emma shared with me. So I was really happy to share this story today because of this image, and he gave it a thumbs up. So, all right, yay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen at this moment because I'm going to switch. All right, and I'm going to, what I had to do, because I don't have 3 Vitamixes in my kitchen, I needed to prepare these recipes last night, and so I videotaped them. So I'm hoping the technology cooperates with us today, and then I'm going to show you a video, and then I'll come back and talk about the end product. Okay? So I'm going to share screen again. And I'm going to start with the white bean, garlic, and lemon recipe. Okay. So here we go. Ingredients for the white bean, garlic, and lemon spread. So the last time I made this, it was a huge hit in the family. My husband and daughter gobbled it up, so I'm super happy and excited to be sharing it with you today. So first I'll just step through the ingredients, and then what's so nice about sauces and spreads is that you just throw it all in the blender and you blend until you get the consistency that you like. So here we have just some white beans. The recipe calls for 1 15-ounce can. I'm actually doubling this recipe because it was such a hit the last time. I'm making more. We also have 2 cloves of garlic. We have a tablespoon of tahini, and I actually mixed it in already with the olive oil and the juice of a lemon. We also have our salt and pepper, and we have some parsley, and we can always add to the flavor afterwards. If we want it a little more lemony or a little more garlicky, you can always add a little bit more of your spice of preference. Another thing that I really like about this spread is that it's creamy, it's versatile. You can use it on many different things, whether it's with vegetables or as a spread over toast or crackers. You can also use it in a tortilla as if you're making a quesadilla. And another reason I really like this sauce is that it doesn't use nuts. We're using beans. And as we know, beans are powerhouses. They're high in fiber, they're high in protein, and the more the better. So here we go. So I'm just going to start putting our ingredients in. So here we have the beans, and I just use canned beans, easy. I just rinse and drain. And here I have my lemon juice. That was actually the juice of a whole lemon. Got the tahini with the olive oil. Tahini is a really good ingredient. If you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend getting it. You can use it for salad dressings. You can use it in spreads and dips like this. You will end up using the whole jar. Garlic, the salt and pepper, and also the parsley. So this, let me just double check my amount here. We have the parsley that is 1 cup loosely packed, so quite a bit of parsley. I'm gonna dump it in there. All right. And just gonna pop the lid on. And I'm gonna do it on a low to start. The recipe states to just let it blend for 2 minutes. And instead of us standing here, waiting for it to get the right consistency, I think I'll let it blend. I may have to add a little more fluid to it, maybe some water, and we will touch back with you in just a minute. All right. So that was the white bean garlic and lemon spread. And I have it here. Let me see if I can show you. So this ended up being how nice and creamy it is, and nice and smooth. And like I said, what I really love about this recipe is that it uses beans instead of nuts. And what I like a lot about that, number one, the fiber and the protein, like I mentioned, but also it doesn't have all the fat, right? So calorically, it's a lot lighter than some of the other spreads. Like hummus can be a little heavy on the oils. So I was just going to plop it in a little serving dish, and you can sprinkle it with some parsley on top, and you can put it in the middle of a little tray of veggies. This particular version with the parsley is very Mediterranean. It's very parsley and lemony. And so it's a real nice dip with the vegetables. You could make this so many different ways. You could turn it into a more of a Mexican flair. If you did cilantro and you added some different spices, you could make it spicy. And then it becomes the spread of, like I mentioned, the quesadillas, or, I use a lot of the Ezekiel sprouted tortillas, and it can become a wrap, and all different flavors. You can make it spicy. You can add more crunch in it. You could put the celery in it. So lots of different ways. Yes.
And we have a question here. Was that 1 can of beans or 2?
So I doubled it, so it was 2.
Okay. And approximately how long will that last in the fridge?
Should last like 3 to 5 days. And it made this size container with the 2 cans if I doubled it. So definitely, the last time I made this, my husband went plant-based a couple of years ago, and he uses it, but he would put some hot sauce in it and personalize it. But it can shift many different directions if you don't put the spices right in. Another thing I do is blending just white beans, and I can put them in the soup, my daughter's soup, and she doesn't even notice. So you can make soups creamy with blended white beans. They're flavorless. Nobody notices. And it's a great way to bump up the fiber and all the plant goodness, right? Without anybody even knowing.
Do you have a favorite white bean? I know some people do
You know,
cannellini.
I just happen, these northern beans I got from Sprouts, but the recipe does call for cannellini beans, butter beans. Wow, you could get really nice buttery flavor with the butter beans.
And
Thanks for that question. I did. I rinse and I drain. I strain them. Chickpeas. Would chickpeas make an okay substitute? I believe so. It would end up being more like a hummus. And what's nice about that is you can make your own low-fat hummus. You don't have to add all the olive oil that we get a lot of times in the supermarket. Depending on which kind of blender you have, you might need to blend a little bit more. And Emma, you want to read Chris's comment there?
Yeah, and comment here from Chris. I love loading a baked sweet potato with spreads and dip like this instead of using butter and sour cream. And I am right there with you, Chris. It's one of my favorite things.
I'm going to feature that, Chris. Thanks so much for that. I have a baked potato here. I'm going to use it on another one, but definitely a baked sweet potato, actually. And I'm going to put that nacho cheese sauce that's coming up on top. But likewise, you could use this on baked potatoes, baked sweet potatoes, as a dip for chips or veggies or whatever. So
another thing, just to put it out there, that I sometimes do is I'll make something like this and then I'll just take a scoop of it and put it into some water and maybe lemon juice or a little white balsamic and shake it, and then you have a salad dressing.
Fantastic.
Which is super, super yummy, a really creamy, yummy salad dressing. And you can throw in lots of herbs, depending, again, like what Jen said about like wanting to shift the flavor profile. If it's like for a Japanese bowl, you can throw some seaweed in there. If it's a Mexican bowl, throw fresh cilantro and some lime. It's so much fun to just play with these, and you're getting all that fiber and protein in a salad dressing. I love it.
I love it. I love that salad dressing idea. I've also thrown it in smoothies. Throw it in a smoothie, just, you know, blend it up, white beans, and nobody notices. So it's nice if anyone's a little phobic to beans in the family, you know, thinking they don't like them, but there's lots of ways to eat beans. So fantastic. Thank you for all those questions and comments. Now I'm going to have to try that dressing. All right. So I'm going to move this one to the side, and I'm going to, we'll move on to the next one, which is the whipped almond ricotta. So I will share my screen here. All right. It's for the whipped almond ricotta recipe, and it's only 5 ingredients, and it takes about 10 minutes in total. So I've already prepped all the ingredients that we're going to put in, and I'll review that now with you. So we have 2 cups of slivered blanched almonds, and we have 3 teaspoons of nutritional yeast. The recipe calls for 2 to 3. I really like nutritional yeast, so I put in 3. I might even put in more at the end. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and I've already thrown the salt and a dash of garlic powder in with the nutritional yeast, a little bit of water, 3/4 cup to 1 cup, and then some fresh parsley. So I'm just going to start by, again, tossing it all in. I'm not sure how long it'll take to reach the consistency that I want. I'm really excited about this recipe because typically this is something that I would purchase in the market, but a friend of mine told me about this ricotta recipe, and so I'm actually giving it a try for the first time as well. So the 2 cups of the slivered almonds, we'll toss those in there. We've got the nutritional yeast, the salt and the garlic, toss in the lemon juice, and also a little bit of the water. It says here at the bottom to just do the lower range, so I'm going to start off with about 3/4 cup, and I'll save a little bit for my powdery ingredients so they don't go flying up into the blender when we turn it on.
Blend for about 2 minutes is what I just heard. Yeah.
Blending.
It's hard competing with the sound of a blender.
Definitely getting thicker. So I'm going to keep blending and I will circle back with you in just a minute for the final product. Okay, so yeah, it is hard to compete with the blender. So what I was saying there was that this is such an easy recipe, but it takes some finessing to find the right consistency. I did end up adding in almost the rest of that little 1/4 cup of water. But as it kept blending, the almond bits got smaller and smaller. And this is the ricotta consistency. So it actually does have quite the right consistency. So this can be used, I mean, you could spread it on pizza. You could start eating cheeseless pizzas, believe it or not. Pizzas, stuffed shells. I also have the store-bought version, which I'll talk about as well. But does anybody out there make their own ricotta or have suggestions? Yes, Emma, please.
I do. So this is one I do in some of my classes, and I know Carol, I believe, has come to one of my classes where I made my now infamous ricotta, and there's 2 recipes that people kind of go gaga for, and I just actually use it as like a spreadable out with crackers, like at a cocktail party or whatever. And they are at Trader Joe's. You can get those sun-dried tomatoes in the pack, in like the plastic pack. There's no oil in them. And I'll use a nice handful of those and fresh basil and blend that in. And it is like mind-blowing delicious. And the other thing is, instead of the olive oil, is actually just using, you'd kind of do half and half, is using a little bit of truffle oil and then use truffle salt in there as well. And that's just so decadent and incredible. So those are so we do have one question here also. Do you have to soak the almonds?
Yes. So if you don't buy I bought the ones that are already, I think they're already blanched and slivered at Trader Joe's. So I did not soak them. But if you were just using your own, just regular almonds, you would need to soak. Yeah. Yes. And so lasagna, I forgot to mention lasagna, would be another great way to enjoy this ricotta. I went to a friend's house who's from Venezuela, and she made me arepas. And it was tofu. It's like a tofu scramble, but we put the plant-based ricotta on top of these little arepas, like little thick kind of bready tortilla with all the fixins on top. And she had actually purchased this ricotta. Now, the thing about this, I got it at Sprouts. It's $10. So this tub, we're going to covet it here at home because it's pricey. But, we could also just make our own. So that was a lot of fun. And I agree, Emma, I think this could be really versatile as well. Like on bagels, instead of bagels and cream cheese, we could do bagels with this on top, put all the sliced peppers and some onion. And, my husband likes to do the hot sauce on top. So.
And Carol's commenting, you'd have to remove the skins if you make this from whole almonds.
You're so right. I'm wondering, do they sell just skinned almonds already?
And again, prohibitively expensive. But when you do soak, you can just, after you soak them, put them in like a kitchen towel and kind of rub them, and the skins do just come right off. So it's not, but getting them blanched and slivered already is such a time saver. they're not cheap, but it's still cheaper than buying the already made product. And
Yeah.
you can control all the other ingredients that are in there.
Yes, yes, exactly. Fantastic. All right. Any other questions about the ricotta before we move on to the nacho cheese?
I love it on vegetable lasagna.
Oh, yes.
It's my favorite.
Fantastic.
And
Yes,
stuffed shells.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking forward to trying both of those. It's been a long time since I've made lasagna, and I've seen the recipes that it don't even have the pasta in there. That's just like the layered veggies. So I'm thinking about giving that a try. Yeah.
Yeah, using slivered zucchini is really, really yummy. We've done that a few times.
Do you buy it already?
No, I just get the zucchini and I just use I do it on the mandolin. So you get, pretty uniform slices. Doesn't have to be super thin. You can also do roll-ups with the zucchini slices like that, or with the ricotta in it, and then do almost like a casserole, like little zucchini case, like almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, kind of like enchiladas, like mini ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great tips. I love it. All right. So we'll move on to the next recipe, which is the nacho cheese. So I'm going to share my screen again. Here. All right. And I'm sorry for the sound. I think what I'll do after we watch the demo, I'm going to run back through the recipe because I realized I didn't give the amounts as I'm stepping through the recipe. So we'll recap at the end if you miss anything. The best for last. This is the nacho cheese sauce. And I have a feeling that this is going to be a new favorite. I know in my house we love Mexican food, and so I can't wait to taste the flavor of this nacho cheese sauce. And what's interesting is it's made with oats, and I can't believe it. So here I have the ingredients. The first primary ingredient are just rolled oats. And of course, we've got the nutritional yeast that gives it a nice cheesy flavor. We're using arrowroot powder today. You can also use cornstarch. It's just a thickening agent. And we've got some garlic powder and salt. I'm also using some apple cider vinegar and some liquid smoke. And we've got a jar of roasted red peppers, and I'm going to throw it all in there. I'm also doubling this recipe because I have a feeling it's going to be a hit. So now this is Emma's recipe from Rooted, and so I am really excited to see how it turns out. She says to blend until the consistency changes. So let's find out. So I'm going to toss in the oats. Of course, oats being high in fiber, soluble fiber, good for lowering cholesterol. We've got our nutritional yeast, which is packed with B vitamins. Throw in the arrowroot, our spices, garlic and the salt. I will also drizzle in apple cider vinegar and liquid smoke, and we're going to toss in everything in the can. So these are packed in water. Toss it all in there. Good smoky, peppery flavor. And then it calls for 2 cups of hot water. And so I've got my tea kettle here, and I'm going to pour in 2. But because I am doubling this recipe, toss in another 2. All right, keep my fingers crossed. Hope it all turns out okay. All right. All right. So the end product, I couldn't believe the color change. Now that I was watching the video again, how it all changed color, and the flavor of the roasted red pepper really does come through. So this is, you're probably not even seeing the accurate color here, but it actually has a really nice orange hue to it. It's really vibrant, actually. And as you saw in that wonderful picture, my husband's tofu scramble this morning, it really is velvety. And so what I did here is I just have like a little bowl. I got some sweet potato on the bottom with broccoli, some beans, and some chips, and a few slices of avocado. And just for visual purposes, so you can see the consistency. All right. And there we have it. So, whether it's, for nachos, or on top of broccoli, on top of baked potatoes, on top of tofu scrambles. I think that we're going to be using this quite a bit. And as Emma suggested, you can always play with the flavors. Like, we like it a little hot. So, maybe we will add some of, some of these spicier, heated kind of spices, like, I have some chipotle, I have smoked paprika, you could even toss some turmeric in there to hide it. I mean, it's probably not going to come through too strong. And, the one thing, so that first slide that I showed you about, or one of the first slides about use what you have, I had to use what I had in this one. I actually didn't have liquid smoke. I had, but I did happen to have this smoky barbecue coconut aminos. So perhaps the flavor would be even more robust with the liquid smoke, but this is what I had on hand. So I modified and I made do, and it turned out okay. So Emma, please add your wisdom with this.
Yeah, I mean, this sauce is, and I will just a caveat to that. I did not create this recipe whatsoever. This is a woman on her YouTube channel, Jill McKeever, and I slightly altered it because we don't use a ton of cornstarch, so I changed it to the arrowroot, and I also sort of halved it, and used the hot water as my spin on it. But as you sort of started to see, it does take a long time to blend to get that consistency. When you don't use hot water, it can actually take about 10 minutes of blending. So just keep that in mind. When you do use piping hot, just boiled kettle water, it will take still about 5 minutes. You will audibly hear the change when blending it. Like it suddenly goes from to like it's sounding thicker. It's a very nuanced sound, but you will absolutely, there it is, and then it's done. This is, I usually make a pretty large, vat of it. When just to kind of something to know, when you do open it after it's been in the refrigerator, it quite quickly, in fact, even if it's just on the counter, it will develop a skin on top of it. This is totally normal. Just mix it right back in. One of the things, one of my daughter's favorite things is and it's like a really quick and easy lunch to make for her. I chop a sweet potato into small cubes. I throw it in the microwave for about 5.5 minutes. Just as it comes out, I take a spoon of this and I mix it in there so it heats it up. And then I put in like a quarter of a cup of beans, mix those two things up, throw it in a tortilla and heat that up on the stove. And it's like a little quesadilla for her. It feels like such a decadent, fatty thing to eat, but you can literally, it's oats. Like it's healthy for you as oatmeal, which is so crazy. So, it's such a great, I love putting it out also for kids, because it's like, there's no way this is made from oatmeal. Right. It's a pretty fun one.
I'm amazed. I really am. So I save jars and just, that's, this was maybe a pickle jar or whatever. And I love to be able to store things in these large, wide mouth jars. So there was enough for 2 of these when I doubled the recipe. But I agree, it is so fun. And I really see, like, mac and cheese even, right? On pasta, potatoes, veggies, dips, to dip things in, or I think this is going to be a a staple in our house. And so what I loved about all three of these recipes is they were made, the root ingredient was different. We made a sauce or dip with beans. We made one with nuts, and we've made one with oats. And they're all really, they all turned out fantastic. I think we could play with the flavor a little bit, you know, with all of them, but I think that they are really useful and really unbelievable. Like nobody would know that this is made with oats. So it was a lot of fun. Were there any questions about the nacho cheese recipe or comments? No. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go over a few other items that I think are worth noting, like when you think about switching over from cow's milk to plant-based milks. We have quite a few here in our house. I happen to, it's kind of a treat. Okay, so I do like Costco's brand of soy. It's very creamy. It has good mouthfeel. I can use it in coffee and tea. And for me, it feels like milk. Like it gives me the same, I've never been a milk drinker, but it gives me the same experience. So it is, it's basically 100 calories in 1 cup, and it's got 8 grams of protein, 8 grams of carbs, and 4 grams of fat. But it is fortified, so you're getting your vitamin D and calcium and a little bit of B12. So that's what's nice about the Costco brand. My husband likes the vanilla, and it's actually not much sweeter than the regular. And so he likes the vanilla version. And my daughter, I've got all these different milks. My daughter has always drank the almond milk, and she likes the one that has the 60 calories. It's slightly more milky. Anytime I've been in a pinch and I decide that I'm going to get the 30 because that's the only thing that the store has, I get home, I give it to her, and she knows the difference. Go figure.
How old is she?
She's 9.
Discerning.
Yes, very. So yeah, the thing about the almond milk is it doesn't offer as much protein, but we're getting plenty of protein in other places. So it's also fortified. And another kind of fun thing, as you all have, I'm sure, seen, there are a ton of yogurts on the market, plant-based yogurt. They're creamy. Everyone offers something, each one offers something different, whether it's made with coconut milk or cashew. I tend to lean away from the coconut versions just because coconut also has saturated fat, and so it's not an inflammatory fat per se, but I would just rather go with one of the other nut options. We already saw the ricotta, and that you can find that at Sprouts, probably Whole Foods. Also, different non-dairy butters, right? This is a really nice brand. This is also coconut oil based. And because we become pretty strict around here, because my husband's cardiovascular health requires us to be quite strict, we have also leaned a little bit away from this product. It's delicious, maybe on special occasions. We also have Earth Balance. This one is easy to find because it's at Trader Joe's. We just happen to have Trader Joe's so conveniently located. I also bought some Parmesan. I thought about making a Parmesan recipe, but didn't. But there's the plant-based Parmesan. And we've never been a big fan of plant-based store-bought cheeses. So if anybody has a recommendation, I picked up these shredded, this shredded mozzarella cheese alternative, and I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try it on the 9-year-old, see how it goes. The true test.
I like the Violife brand.
Do you?
Yeah, it's from Greece, and it's a little hard to get it sometimes, but it's a very good brand. Delicious cream cheese and and all sorts of hard cheeses, also a grated mozzarella.
Did you say Vitalife?
Violife, right? Violife, yeah,
BioLife, yep.
yes.
I'm gonna look for that one as well.
They do a good feta cheese.
Ah, delicious.
Yeah.
Say feta is high on my list. I love a little feta.
There's a question here from Emma. Have you ever tried making plant-based cheeses? Somebody else on this call could answer that. So for a little while, I was known as the crazy vegan cheese lady. I actually used to do cheese making classes here in Santa Barbara, down in at numerous wineries. So yes, I was actually, but unfortunately, I actually developed a bit of a nut allergy, and I was making the majority of my cheeses from nuts. So I've moved away a little bit, but yes, it's something I love making. I'm making them all the time. And I agree with you. Also, you made a comment here that the Miyoko's butter is delicious. That actually was a really interesting transition food for us. My husband is Swiss, and, dairy is a very important part of, Swiss culture and diet. And I brought that particular butter home, and it was for him. He just said, it's delicious, tastes like butter, I love it, I'm in. And that was literally, I don't know, 5 years ago when Miyoko's first came out, and we've never ever gone back. That when we put butter on the grocery list, that is what he buys, so that was a great first step in our household. And it's delicious. It's got that salty European style quality to it. And you can also buy it in a spreadable version as well. And they did actually recently come out with an oat-based one. So for those who want to get away from the coconut, I mean, I think there is still coconut in it, but it's much less. And they have, I believe, a Parmesan and garlic flavored one too.
Oh.
So Miyoko's is an incredible company also.
Great. I'm going to grab something from my freezer real quick. I wanted to.
Does anybody have questions, or are you going to go ahead?
Well, again, with the 9-year-old at home and looking for, some special items, Trader Joe's actually has a lot of options. And, these are not whole food, but at least if we're going to be eating ice cream every now and then, it's nice to know that we have alternatives. And what I really like about these is check out the portion size. It's like just enough, right? It makes, makes her happy, makes us happy if you just need a little something without the dairy. So, and they have also, in tubs, the soy-based ice cream. And what I would love to do is also at some point with Rooted is we need a nice cream demo, right?
That will be, we're going to do the healthy treats class in the summer, and will be for BCRC. So I will be doing that class myself. And yes, we will be doing some nice creams and some yummy frozen treats for the summertime.
Great.
So, and I guess one caveat I will say to these are just because these are plant-based does not necessarily mean, like, the store-bought versions of these things are not necessarily healthy foods. So, just to keep that in mind as well, they are alternatives to dairy, which many of us have found that we have issues with dairy, or that, it can lend to, cancer cell proliferation with the hormones that are in these types of foods. And so these are just great alternatives. They're not necessarily